evening, everybody. My name is Todd Scholl. I serve as the lead learner for the SCEA Center for Educator Wellness and Learning. We call ourselves Cool. You can learn more about Cool at cool.us, at cewl.us. Just look at that at the bottom of your screen right there. Head on over. You'll be able to find this live stream once we get it posted and edited. And we've got all kinds of great content over there, including member-led content. We call these our Cool content creators. We have new videos out from Pete Stone, from Mindy Penn. We'll have some new blog posts by Steve Newsom soon. So please head on over there. We've got a wealth of resources, including our resources around induction. And Dr. Marcella Weinsnyder is leading those resources. And one of the things that she does, along with Angie Brush and Stephanie Johnson, is provides cool coaching to induction teachers. So if you're a person in the early part of your teaching career and you just need some assistance, we hold coaching sessions every Tuesday and Thursday night from 6 to 8 o'clock, and you just go to cool.us/coaching. You can also find information about this on the SCEA's Facebook page. You just click the link and you're put into a breakout room, a Zoom breakout room, and you can ask all of your questions, get all the advice you need from 3 veteran educators. So we want to encourage you, if you're a new teacher and have some questions or need some advice, to use that free resource from Cool and the SCEA. And if you're not, if you know of an induction teacher who might need that kind of support, please let them know about that. And the other thing I wanted to promote before we get on to tonight's live stream is our Educator Mindfulness Retreat, which will be held June 12th through the 14th of 2024 in beautiful Black Mountain, North Carolina, just east of Asheville. And you can find out more information about that at cool.us/retreat. And I do want to tell you, we only have a handful of slots left for that retreat. So if you're interested, you're going to want to head on over there and complete the application as soon as possible. Well, tonight we're going to be talking about an issue that's been ongoing in South Carolina from the days when I was working at the Center for Educator Recruitment, Retention, and Advancement, or CERRA. CERRA each year releases its teacher supply and demand report for the state of South Carolina, letting us know how many teachers departed, how many classroom vacancies there are. And this is sort of like a health checkup for the teaching profession in South Carolina. And there's so much attention around this. A lot of press covers this, and a lot of people are paying attention to these numbers to see where we're headed. Well, common sense will tell you that with what we've seen around the culture, the pay, the working conditions of educators, that the numbers have just been increasingly getting worse. There's a bump here and there, but the trend has been for years now that the number of departures and vacancies has been increasing. And this is an alarming thing because it's similar to the analogy that's easy to make is if you're trying to recruit football players to USC or Clemson and you're just not able to fill all those slots and you've got vacancies on your football roster, that would tell you that there's a problem with your program. There's something wrong with the program when you can't give away those positions. You can't get those positions filled, or you're having to go scramble and fill them in any way you can with Band-Aid solutions. So this is a real problem because this directly impacts our students. When students don't have access to the best possible person leading their classroom, that's going to have negative outcomes for those students. So this is why it's so important for us to pay attention. Well, each year, this report is constructed and authored by Dr. Jennifer Garrett. She is CERRA's coordinator of research and program evaluation. I think I got that right. And so each year I talk to her because she is the expert about this. So we're going to bring her on. Welcome to the program, Dr. Garrett. How are you doing?
Hey, Todd. Doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's always good to see you. Hope that you had a good Thanksgiving. Folks should know that Jennifer and I used to work at CERRA together. We were the 2 coordinators. And so I appreciate your willingness to do this. And I do want to say before you get going that CERRA is an absolutely nonpartisan organization. They release this information in an objective format. They're not out to promote a particular party or particular ideology. They're there really to just help the state with teacher recruitment, retention, and advancement. And they do an amazing job through an array of programs from pro team to teacher cadets, teaching fellows, mentoring, teacher leadership. And one of the things that they do for the state is this report each year to let the state know where we stand. So, Jennifer, can you give us a synopsis of where we stand?
Sure. Well, first I'll start out just by saying that the supply and demand survey is for anyone who is sort of new to this topic or new to this issue. It is a survey that I send out to every public school district at the beginning of each school year, and we ask districts, usually a personnel representative, to report on honestly all the sort of the comings and goings in within their district. So new teachers hired, what subject they'll be teaching, teachers leaving, how many years of experience they have before they left, positions that are still vacant after the school year begins, things like that, just to get a sense, so more of a snapshot of really what's going on in the districts in terms of recruitment and retention within our state. So we did that again this year. We send out the survey usually in September, early September. It's usually sort of right before Labor Day or right after Labor Day, depending on when schools are starting back up for the year. And they have about a month or so to complete this survey. It is very comprehensive, especially for those larger districts who are responsible for tracking hundreds of teachers at a time, leaving, being hired, things like that. So in terms of this year, it's honestly more of the same, unfortunately, in terms of teachers leaving. There was sort of a dip in the number of departures this year, which is great. We certainly want to see fewer teachers leaving, but it averages about 7,000 almost every year. So looking at 5 years worth of data, for example, it's about 7,000. We were at about 7,300 this year that left their position. And now that does include retirements. I want to make sure I do say that includes retirements. It includes teachers who transfer to another district within our state. So we are, as a state, maintaining, 20%, 25%, something like that of those departures. It might actually be a little bit more than that. About 30% actually. About 30% of the departures, they are going to another district. So we are keeping them in the state, but it is sort of creating a vacancy, from the district that they are leaving. So when we say departures, that means everyone. So this could be for reasons of, job dissatisfaction. It could also be reasons for someone having a baby and, wanting to stay home, taking care of a sick parent, any reason that they would choose to leave. So that number did go down a little, which is certainly encouraging. But the number of vacancies, the positions that are still vacant at the beginning of the school year. So this is, anywhere from a month to 6 weeks into that school year. And these are the positions that the districts are reporting as vacant. And we did see an increase in that again. So it's the highest it's been. Unfortunately, it's about 1,600 or so positions that were reported as vacant. Now, I think that's about a 9% increase from last year. So I think it's important to say a couple of things about that. That would include any of your classroom positions, your classroom teaching positions, and what we call service positions. So those are your school counselors, your librarians, speech language pathologists, and I'm missing one, counselors, librarians. Anyway, so it's those service positions that are more sort of school-based,
Right.
rather than like in a particular classroom. There's so that's what I just wanted to clear that up. When we say teacher or teaching vacancy, something like that, we do include those. But yeah, the numbers did go up a little. But one thing I want to say about that is that even if that doesn't necessarily mean that classroom is just sitting there empty, right? Districts, they can do a number of things to make sure those classes are filled. So we do ask districts to report if they have a long-term sub, for example, in a classroom, or if they something like that. We do ask them to report that as vacant. If they are actively looking to fill that position with a permanent hire, even if there is a body in that classroom, we do ask them to report that as vacant as well. So, so a couple of things to understand when we talk about a true vacant position.
And I've read, teasing out sort of the data a little bit more, some of the positions are new positions because districts are growing. So that number is going to grow a little bit, sort of, I'll say the word organically. That's another term, but like as South Carolina grows and the number of districts and classrooms grows, the number of vacancies is going to grow commensurate with that growth. But what you're seeing is the vacancies rise in a way that is that growth can't completely explain, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, they're not in alignment. Yes, that we are seeing growth in positions for whatever reason, for a number of reasons. But this year in particular, we saw a growth of around 600 or so positions statewide, but about 400 of those positions are really can be attributed to the fact that more districts responded to the survey this year. So you have to take that into consideration as well. We had this year, for the first time in a number of years, every single school district, including the 3 public charter districts, responded to the survey. So we have data from every entity that we surveyed this year.
Okay, so that data, so this is really important to put that data into context. But I do think when we look at the numbers and we look at the trends over the past 5 to 10 years, would you agree that it's an objective assessment to say that teacher recruitment and retention in South Carolina over the past 5 to 10 years continues to grow and become a problem in terms of the number, particularly looking at that statistic of vacancies? Would you agree with that assessment?
Yes, I think I can definitely agree with that assessment. I think it's becoming more difficult for districts to recruit and to also keep the teachers that they already have in the classroom for whatever reason. There's a number of reasons, speculations out there, but it is becoming increasingly difficult simply based on the numbers that we're seeing. Yes.
And people I know ask you, and I know this is a really hard question to answer objectively, but what in your research, in talking with these districts, what would you identify as some of the reasons? Not necessarily putting those in order or saying that they're definitively correct and objectively correct, but in your experience, what are you seeing as some of the reasons why this vacancy number continues to increase?
I can't answer that, and I think it's more than. I mean, I think we do have some data behind it, and some, whether it's anecdotal or not. We've been fortunate enough to be involved in some focus groups with teachers in different districts. Where some of the districts, a handful of districts out there, are using an exit survey that we created. So we are able to sort of gather that data directly from the teachers, which I think is an important piece that we've just not had before. For so long we've relied on the districts or, someone in the district office to tell us why their teachers are leaving. And, you and I both know that that's not always the most authentic approach. Teachers aren't necessarily going to be, really excited to tell their supervisor, for example, that they're leaving because of their supervisor. So,
I don't like you. That's what yeah.
Correct.
Right.
So we've been fortunate enough to be able to really obtain that data directly from the source, which has been really great. So some of the things that we are seeing, and again, it's not statewide yet. It would be great if we could have sort of one centralized data collection instrument, but we're not there yet. But some of the things we are seeing that we haven't necessarily seen so concentrated before is, certainly we hear about administration. All the, school level administration comes up a whole lot. But what we've seen lately, or probably in the spring is the last time that we looked at this, was administration, but in response to student behavior. That's one of the sort of, you told me not to like rank order them, but in terms of just quantity and who's saying it and how many people are saying it, it's pretty high on the list. Just that either, the inconsistency when it comes to student behavior and student discipline, and inconsistency meaning based on the support or the consequences that they're seeing within the school. One student can do one thing, their consequences are going to be very different from this student. Teachers just not feeling supported by administration when it comes to discipline and when it comes to dealing with the parents of a child who is in this situation where discipline is is warranted. So that's something that I've never really seen sort of such a trend of that. Administration always comes up, but so specifically administration dealing with student behavior was something that we were seeing. Something else that we don't hear a lot about, because it's typically, you think about money, right? I mean, it's definitely, it's an important part of what we do, why we do it, things like that. But for the first time, we did hear some teachers not leaving the profession because of salary, but they are switching districts and going to a district with a higher paying position. So we were hearing some things like that. Workload is coming up a good bit. Again, no secret, but just the added workload, added task, with not a whole lot of, I guess, explanation that comes up a lot. Just, hey, do this, but there's no reason behind it.
Right.
And that could be coming from school level. That could be coming from the district office. We hear different things. We sometimes hear, my principal is wonderful. So I don't want it to sound like, this is all about principals, but my principal is wonderful, but the things that are coming from, from the top that he or she doesn't have a whole lot of control of, I'm not willing to deal with.
That's right.
So, yeah. So, I mean, I say it's kind of all over the place, but it's really, it's pretty narrow when you think about it and when you look at the things that you are hearing from those teachers.
Yeah. So I hear a lot of that as well. And
Sure you do.
One thing that's interesting is to look at the numbers as we went through the pandemic, and a lot of teachers were stressed out over the whole thing. I mean, having to do hybrid learning, or and worrying about masking and going to school and worrying about, getting the disease. I mean, that was such a weird 2-year or so time period. And I think, as we saw those numbers come in and continue to get worse during the pandemic, I think some people were attributing to that to the stress that teachers were feeling from the pandemic. And I'm kind of wondering if, first of all, clearly we're out of knock on wood, that we're not really in the midst of a pandemic now, and we're seeing these numbers continue to be, in the wrong direction. But I'm wondering if some of it too is, students who were out and doing that hybrid learning for two years and now coming back into the classroom and trying to have to almost kind of get them used to being in the physical school space again, and that could be contributing to some of these discipline issues that you're referencing. I don't know, was that brought up at all? The connection to sort of these students coming out of being through Zoom and Google Classroom or whatever, some of that?
It did. It absolutely did. And not just through, those sort of focus groups and exit search, just in conversations around here. One of my coworkers is a former principal, and he went and observed a classroom, and because he manages some interns as well, kind of his side gig. And he was saying the same kinds of things and talking to the teachers, that it's just been such a struggle trying to get these students sort of reacclimated into a classroom, and especially those younger students who, that spent their kindergarten year at home.
Right.
So yeah. I mean, I think you could probably see it, at all different ages. I mean, I certainly, saw it with my kids. And I think it's definitely a thing. It's definitely noticeable.
I think that's a challenging particular variable to work on. I think there to me, there are variables that would be very easy. And I know you have to be careful about this part of the conversation, but when we talk about what can a legislator do, solving that problem seems to be complicated and something that we have to work on together. When it comes to school environment, what are we asking students to do? How are teachers being trained? What is the administration doing? What's not working? But that's from a legislative perspective, that seems to be a really difficult thing to tackle. What seems to be something that would be easy to tackle, and I think is kind of low hanging fruit, is maybe try paying teachers more, and also ensuring that their workload or working conditions are manageable. Because what I'm hearing is if you're a teacher and you're having to work a second job or sometimes a third or fourth job, that's causing stress. So then when you go to school and you're having to handle those discipline issues or you're having to handle that additional workload, it's tough because you're not really getting a break. So paying teachers would be a simple thing to do, and what they've done in terms of pay raises in many cases only is impacting teachers in those districts that didn't have a decent pay scale, didn't have a higher pay scale. And also sometimes only those first year teachers are like early career teachers. So a lot of folks in their 12th, 13th year maybe weren't really seeing much of a raise out of that. So across the board, increasing pay seems to be an easy one. And then also addressing like unencumbered planning time and other things. And there has been some movement in that direction, but it seems to me from what I'm hearing from teachers is that there has to be something in place to protect educators from having to basically work from the moment they get into the building to the end of the day without any kind of real planning or break period. Are you hearing that as well? And what is your thought around what can legislators do quickly and effectively that would mitigate some of this recruitment and retention issue?
No, we're definitely hearing that as well. The planning time is always an issue, or not having enough of it. Getting or you have planning time, and oh, but wait, you've got to go cover this class, or you've got to cover lunch, or whatever it might be. So that's certainly an issue. That work-life balance it's real. Like it's a real thing, and I think we all sort of struggle with it. But if you're expected to take all this extra work home, then you're going to be giving more to one side of your life than the other side. So I think everything you said, it all makes sense. It all seems like something that we as a state should be working on. Another thing that we heard too, in terms of not just a higher salary, which I think wouldn't we all love, right? I don't know I don't know if teachers are necessarily, again, I don't know that they're leaving because, I'm leaving because of salary. I'm leaving because my salary is so low. Teachers don't go into teaching thinking they're going to make this large sum of money. So it's not a surprise when they're not making whatever level, of money. I think it does impact recruitment in particular.
Yes.
Retention, sure. I think it's a part of it, but I from what we're hearing, it's more about recruitment than anything, trying to get young students to take on a career where, it's maybe not the most flashy and exciting in terms of you're gonna have all these perks and bonuses and things like that, which we all know is not the case. But something that we did hear related to salary, but it was more of, hey, I'm actually moving to this. I'm transferring to this district, not just because of this position that pays more, but I've got more opportunity here to grow and to be in a position that's not, I don't necessarily want to be a principal, but I do want more responsibility, but I also want to be compensated for that responsibility. So I'd say more so now than in the past, we're hearing that as well. So yes, it's about money, but in a way that I want to work for the money. I want to earn the money, but I want to be able to be in a position where there is growth and there are these pathways where I can sort of elevate my career without necessarily stepping into administration.
I'm glad you brought up recruitment because mitigating that vacancy number is really about keeping people in the profession, but it's also about being able to get new people into the profession. And what I'm hearing is that our colleges of education are really struggling to attract people into that career field, into that college, because the thing about it, interestingly, is let's say you're thinking you want to be a teacher, maybe a science teacher, but you're not sure. Well, if I get a degree in biology, right, and I go and get a bachelor's degree in biology, I can still become a teacher because I can just take an alternative pathway to become a science teacher. So it's like in some ways, for some people the way it's set up, it doesn't really make sense to get an education degree because you're sort of pigeonholing yourself into that particular degree field. Whereas if I get a degree in math or a degree in biology, I can always go and teach because it's a critical needs area. I think there's like what I'm noticing is that there's also this snowballing effect. As the snowball goes down the hill, it gets bigger. When as there are more vacancies, what you see a lot of districts doing is some class sizes are getting maybe bigger. More is being asked of those teachers, so those students still are showing up in the building, and you have 1,600 vacancies. There's still 1,600 classrooms worth of kids showing up, and like you said, it might be a permanent sub. There's a lot of different ways they may manage those vacancies, but ultimately it's putting strain on the people who are showing up to do the job. And when you put strain on those people in an already strenuous job, and you're not going to really compensate them for that additional strain, that's why I think people are looking for the exit. Like, what can I do? And in the way the economy has evolved over the past few years with inflation, through just more opportunities to do other work, I do think there's this problem where I just talk to a lot of teachers who are like just looking at where else can I go, and actually and be sane, have some time for my family, have not feel like I'm being pulled in a million different directions, not being disrespected, like getting to your issue with discipline, um, and be compensated just as well. I know you're saying it's not just about money, but I do think there's like this, like you said, with young people, they stop by a Buc-ee's and they say they can be a car wash manager for $125,000, and then, or I can go into the classroom and make 40. It's like, I don't have to spend 4 years in college, uh, you know, 4 or 5 years in college paying for tuition. I can just go work at a Buc-ee's. It's like, I just think there's so many pressures that are levers that are sort of in the wrong direction, exacerbating this problem. What are your thoughts on all that?
No, I don't think you're off at all. I mean, all of that makes sense. I think I always say that, no, it may not be, it's not all about money, right? It's not, it's about quality of life. It's about that work-life balance, but more money does make a big pill easier to swallow, right?
Right.
It's kind of the analogy. You like analogies, I know, mostly football, but yeah. So certainly it would be a step in the right direction for sure. But I just think it's about a lot more. Again, particularly with keeping the teachers who are already in the classroom. Some of them have been in the classroom for 20 years and are taking early retirements and things like that when they didn't think they were going to. And that's another part of this. You've got districts that report X number of retirements, but how many of those were planning to retire? I've got a very dear friend who retired a few years ago. That was not her plan. That, yes, she was old enough, had all the eligibility to retire with no consequences, but that was not her plan. She retired, but she left because of working conditions. So it's, when we report retirements, they're increasing or decreasing or whatever, there's so much more that goes into that. And then, when folks say, oh, well, teachers are leaving because of administration, there's so much that goes into that. Well, what about it? What about administration? Is it school level? Is it at the district office? Because we hear both. Again, I mentioned this earlier. We hear from teachers, my principal is wonderful. I would follow this man or woman, to the moon. But I can't get out from under, what's going on or what the expectations are from the district office. And so I think there's so many levels and so many factors that are going on that I don't think there's just one answer. I don't think it's give them more money or take away or make sure they have plan. I mean, I think it's all of that.
Yeah.
I think it's a combination of some really probably pretty obvious things, and then there's probably going to be some areas where some really smart people need to get together and figure out what's going on. Because I mean, the bottom line is, you mentioned the colleges and universities. Those numbers are, I mean, consistently dropping. The number of students who are graduating with eligibility for teacher certification, that number is dropping almost every single year. And I mean, it's pretty low. I mean, we're only talking a couple thousand for the whole state. And you take that, and then you look at how many teachers are being hired every year and how many vacancies there still are. I mean, it's a pretty small fraction of what we need it to be.
And laboring my football metaphor.
There we go.
So, like, just because you're filling a position doesn't mean you're filling it with somebody who's going to help your team win either. Like, when you're desperate because you can't find anybody, I mean, who are you getting to lead that classroom? And I don't mean to indict any classroom teacher, but that would be true. Like, if you have a football team and you're just like, I just need somebody. Well, can you throw a ball? Can you catch one? Like, you're on campus, come out and try out for the team. It's like, I feel like people are not understanding that it's not just about 1,600 vacancies, but it's also about how vacancies are filled, who they're filled with. Are these people who are experienced? Are they going to do a high quality job? Are these the best and the brightest people that we can place in front of students? Because when you have that many vacancies and you're desperate, it's hard to believe that you're able to go out and really get all stars for every one of those vacancies. I do want to, before I know we're running out of time, but there's two things I wanted to talk about. One issue that I believe is a huge impact on this topic is the way standardized tests are used in terms of, you've got these federal mandates that come to the State Department. You got State Department things that come to the district office to your school, to the school principal. Like you said, that principal is, that line, receiving that line of, pressure, and then coming into the classroom. And I see this whole sort of toxic culture that's been created around making sure that we meet whatever goals we need to meet with these standardized tests, sucking some of the joy out of teaching, some of the creativity, some of the fun out of teaching, where it becomes really focused on let's maximize test scores. And that dehumanizing process, to me, is something that it's going to be hard to attract somebody to want to do that. And it's also, to me, hard to keep really great teachers who want to be innovative and creative and have autonomy, to keep them in the profession. Are you hearing some of that as well in terms of autonomy and testing and things like that?
We are, for sure. Yeah, definitely the autonomy piece. Not necessarily specific to standardized tests, but just in general, just not having that autonomy to teach. Teach how they know how to teach. We did hear during some of our focus groups the standardized testing piece. I'll be very honest. I guess I was naive to the whole situation, that just how much pressure can be put on those sort of school level administrators from the district office, and the district office is, I'm sure, feeling it from above them. So just how that trickle down effect, how it seems abstract when you're talking about it, but how it truly can impact one teacher's decision to leave or to not. And I was really naive to that, because I've only been on the side of it as a student taking a standardized test, and now my children taking standardized tests. And in our house, it's, hey, do the best you can.
Right,
it's
right,
just do your best.
It's like going to the doctor, and it's like, you're getting your blood pressure. It's like, okay, here, take my blood pressure, and it is what it is. Like,
Right.
there shouldn't be a whole lot of stress around it, and then you get the results and you say, okay, I got to work on this, and like, that's what it should be. But it's become this game. To me, it's just become this game that we play, and then we focus on it to the detriment of human health and wellness. And I think that that's another driver of people leaving the profession, or people not wanting to get into it because they don't want to be a part of a game that they don't see value in anymore. That's my sense. And there's one other issue. This one's more speculative. You know how I get with science fiction and stuff. And I know we're running out of time. But one of the concerns that I have, and I'm just wondering if Sarah or anybody's been looking at this, is the impact that artificial intelligence and machine learning will have on the profession and will have on recruitment. Because one sense that I get is we're kind of moving into a world where the need, like the purpose of school, I don't think it should be this, but the purpose of school seems to be almost exclusively to prepare kids for a career. And now it's like, kids who are in kindergarten, what are their careers going to be? If artificial intelligence continues to evolve the way it has been over the past, 15 to 20 years, what jobs are going to be available for those students? And what do we need schools for if, the jobs are going to be done by machines? So it's like, I worry that the way the economy is going, the way the needs are going, and the way we viewed schools as primarily a tool for producing workers, that there's going to be like this sense that, well, why are we even investing in this public service anymore? Like, why do we even bother with public education anymore? Let's just educate the kids that we need to educate and do the things that they need to do to prepare for those kind of jobs that are going to be available. And I worry about that as an additional pressure on the teaching profession, like saying, even like to a degree where we're going to have more distance learning, more virtual learning, more students involved in especially in rural areas, maybe accessing virtual teachers or artificial intelligence to do the work when you can't, especially when you can't find a teacher. If I can find a virtual program that's just as effective in terms of meeting those standardized test scores, if I can invest in a program or a technology that does that, I don't even need to worry about recruitment anymore. Is that something that's on the radar of CERRA or on the radar of people looking at this?
I can't speak for other people, other organizations. It's not a conversation that we're having here at CERRA, but I know how your mind works, and I know that you are thinking about that a whole lot. So not a whole lot I can add there, but I think you're certainly onto something in terms of seeing an impact or an increase in, virtual learning, distance learning, things like that. I could definitely see that being a reality. I don't know if in the next couple of years, 5 years, whatever. It'd be interesting to see what the numbers are, now versus like right in the middle of COVID, to see what those numbers are in terms of students who are still homeschooling, for example. We've got it personally in my neighborhood. I know there were several families that and not just e-learning. I had to be very clear, when talking to people. They talked about e-learning, like, oh, I'm homeschooling. I'm like, no, you're not. You're home with your children while their teachers are teaching them,
Right.
like, through a Chromebook. But some truly, were homeschooled, and they stayed. I mean, they're still truly homeschooling. So, are we going to see more of those kinds of things, or those virtual academies? I mean, it's very possible, particularly if it's just going to get increasingly more difficult to get teachers in the classroom.
This is my fear for the teaching profession, and I don't mean to be an alarmist. I don't want to sound like I'm Chicken Little, but it's my concern is, if you're in a district office somewhere where, like, God, we've got all these vacancies and we can't fill them, and then someone comes by with a technology that says, hey, we can fix this for you with this particular virtual learning system, and it will cost you a lot less than you beating your head against the wall recruiting and not being effective. And this type of system doesn't take a day off, it doesn't need to have sick leave, it doesn't complain, it doesn't have a problem,
Doesn't have kids.
yeah. Your test scores will go up. That suddenly that calculation, I think is I want to say I don't support that system, because I think we need human to human interaction. But it's like, I really fear for the future of the profession, because I don't know that folks understand how powerful artificial intelligence is and how powerful it's about to be. And if that artificial intelligence can yield test results and all we care about are test results, my concern is that that option is going to become increasingly more attractive for decision makers. And I think that's something that needs to be on our radar, because like even looking at, like, when you look at school shootings and violence and bullying and things like that, you understand sometimes people are keeping their kids at home. Like, and like, if they feel like my kid can get just as good an education from my home, and they're safe, they're with me. I, I worry about that. I feel like I feel like there's symptoms of a very toxic culture and a problem with the way schools are currently configured and the system is currently configured, and we have to address that problem if we're going to effectively address teacher recruitment and retention. But I realize we're out of time. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you want to share about the report, or where people can find the report if they want to read the whole thing?
I think we hit all the highlights. Anyone who is interested can find the report on our website. It's www.cerra.org. However, I say that our website was down all day yesterday. We're still experiencing some glitchy kind of things, so it may not look exactly like it's supposed to, but but the document should be there. But certainly give us a little time. We're working with our provider to get that sorted out. So
Okay. Well, I know you've got probably a lot of phone calls coming in and
yeah,
media appearances you need to make. So I appreciate you taking all this time.
sure,
Um, and it's
sure.
always
You
good
were
to
the
see you.
first.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. We got the scoop.
You
Um,
did. You
tell
definitely
everybody,
got the best.
tell everybody there I said hello, and
I sure will.
hopefully I'll see you again before next November.
That's right. That's right.
All
All
right,
right.
Jennifer.
Thanks,
Have a great
Todd.
holiday. All right, take care. That's Dr. Jennifer Garrett from CERRA, CERRA's coordinator of research and program evaluation. And you can find the full supply and demand report on their website at cerra.org. That's CERRA.org. I also want to invite you again, if you missed it at the beginning, to learn more about the retreat that we're holding, the South Carolina um, uh, Educator Mindfulness Retreat. That's going to be in Black Mountain this summer, June 12th through the 14th. You can read more about that on the Cool website, cool.us/retreat, and our coaching program, which is one-to-one coaching with veteran educators. If you know an induction teacher who needs support, they can go to cool.us/coaching. And of course, all of our resources are available on the website at cool.us, but none of this would be possible without the South Carolina Education Association. The South Carolina Education Association is the movement in South Carolina to create the kind of schools that our teachers deserve. That if we could, come together and work together under one union, we could actually create schools that, our colleges of education would be overflowing with candidates. There would be more than enough people to supply our classrooms with high quality teachers, and this whole teacher recruitment retention issue really wouldn't be in crisis mode the way it is. So we have to come together, and the place to come together is the SCEA. So I want you to look at the bottom of your screen if you're interested in joining our movement, and you can join it at any time. You just go to jointhescea.org, or you can text the word join to 48744. If you're not ready to make that commitment, but just want to be connected with us and learn more about the SCEA, go to this website, the scea.org/YRO. Just complete that. Someone will get in touch with you. And of course, anyone can reach out to me or anyone on our staff. We've got amazing UniServe directors in every region of the state. We've got Melody Bollinger up in the upstate. We've got Brandy Sturdivant in the Midlands and Alana Ward in the Low Country. And you can reach out to your UniServe directors or anyone on staff, and we'll be happy to answer your questions. Also, you can check out all the events that the SCEA has going on at the scea.org/events. We always have something going on, so we invite you to be a part of that, whether you're a member or not. Just come check out our events, and we'd love to see you at a future event. Well, I want to again thank Dr. Jennifer Garrett for the amazing work that she does every year to give this state this sort of checkup, this sort of diagnostic tool, sort of see what's going on with teacher recruitment and retention. And I'm hoping that our legislators and other state leaders will work together to come up with a comprehensive plan to address this crisis, because it is a crisis. It negatively impacts students all across the state of South Carolina. We have classrooms, over 1,600 vacancies, and those classrooms, those are, you figure 20 to 30 students per classroom. That's thousands and thousands of students. with a classroom vacancy, and then we've got to address that. It's really, really urgent and important, and it can't be a can that we keep kicking down the road. We've really, really got to address this issue. So hopefully one day we will elect the leaders and have the leaders that will do this work for us. So thanks again to Dr. Garrett. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you on the next live stream. Have a great one.